I think in a majority of situations, women do, though, deserve less, right? Because they have this egalitarian mindset where they think that they're equal to a man, but at the same time, they want a guy that's superior to them.
Do women want men who they feel are superior to them?
Yes.
Okay, in what ways?
The question is what are women bringing to the table, or are women the table? That's the question.
Let me ask you about this equality, though.
When you're talking about equality, what they really want is they want to have the same social status absent the responsibility.
Am I for telling my wife she's not a single parent just because I work long hours?
You're working, you get to get out of the house, and I have to stay here with the kids. Not fair. Tell her to shut her mouth.
How can I get him to stop caring that I was with guys before him? I feel like every single girl has a list of the guys she's ever been with.
That guy probably thought he was getting involved with somebody different.
She's saying, go find women like her, dump your load on them, and move on, because that's what makes them the women they are today for their man. What is a traditional woman?
To me, you're asking me?
Mm-hmm.
To me, a traditional woman is someone who... All right, everyone, welcome. Brand new Jedediah Bila show today, and we have a very special guest is in the house. We've got Andrew Wilson. Oh, yeah, he's been stirring it up over at whatever podcast. We've covered some of that. We're going to ask him about it. He is at the Crucible over at YouTube, Paleo ChristCon on Twitter, and more. He'll tell you what he wants to plug and all that. But first of all, Andrew, welcome. I have been bugging you. You know, you said you would come on, and then you were out in California doing whatever podcasts and all that stuff. I've been bugging you for a while for good reason. So welcome, first of all.
Thank you.
You caused a boatload of trouble over at whatever podcast. So we tuned in. You debated. First of all, God bless you, man, because these are very lengthy debates with people that aren't packed too tight, if you know what I mean. You had a male feminist, you had a female feminist who I think had some type of health problem and then was like turning the whole show into like, oh, I need to leave, but if you give me enough money, I'll stay. What's mad? So first of all, what's your takeaway of that whole experience?
So I don't mind doing long form debates, and I don't mind doing short form debates. In my heart, I'm a debater. I'm an entertainer first and foremost, but debate is where kind of my passion is. I enjoy doing that more than anything else. So when they line up long form debates, I'm always happy to do it, especially with feminists and male feminists, especially because they're even dumber than the female feminists usually. So I always enjoy tangling up with them, especially progressive leftists. I have a special seething hatred in my heart for all of them. So I've always enjoyed doing that kind of stuff. It's very taxing, it's very tiring to do those 4 or 5 days in a row, but always happy to do it.
Is there a difference for you debating the female feminist versus the male feminist? Because I always say that, you know, when you debate a woman, I don't know if you can think back to even like when Hillary Clinton was on the debate stage, there's a certain thing that happens with masculine energy, right? Where women are immediately able to play the misogynist card. Like, you're sexist, you're misogynist, you're talking over me, you're interrupting me. Does that also, does that change the dynamic? Do you prefer debating a guy over a woman, or do you change your strategy of your tone or whatnot to kind of appeal to the how do you work that machine?
They want to be interchangeable widgets. I treat them like men.
I love it.
Easy. They say that they're men, that they're interchangeable with men, so I treat them like men. And they always get pissed off that I treat them exactly the same way that I would treat a man who was on the debate stage. And one of the things that pisses feminists off the most is that anytime they make a comparison with my debates with men, they can't say I'm treating them any different.
Maybe that's the strategy then, that guys that hit the debate stage, as more women start running for office and all that stuff, maybe that is the lesson that you heard right there. Also, by the way, people were getting real twisted about your wife. Your wife was going on Twitter, and I guess she's how does she define herself? A patriarchist? Is that what she says? Is it? Yeah, she was. Yeah. People were not happy with her too. They were going for her. I don't know if you saw that.
People have been consistently after me and my wife since day one. The goal there is to create division where it's impossible to create division. So you cannot create division between me and my wife. You can't get a piece of paper between us. So I think it's hilarious, though, that people will endlessly try to play the divide and conquer card It's just never.
It's
gonna work.
fascinating. Maybe we'll have her on too.
She's way too whipped.
Maybe we'll have her on too at some point to hear her thoughts on. I wonder how much she and I align or don't. I don't know. I haven't followed her enough to know, but that would be an interesting thing.
Well, she has a great book. It's called Occult Feminism.
Okay.
It's been a bestseller on Amazon in its category for almost 2 years. And she's also an excellent debater. I would consider her to be the premier female anti-feminist debater in the world.
Well, that's good. Maybe we'll have her on then. I'm going to make a little note to myself on the side. All right, this is a reaction show. So what we're going to do is we're going to show some clips, and we're going to use that to offshoot into broader conversations. Some of them are going to be silly, and some of them are going to be a little bit meatier. But I want to get your reaction to these, and then we'll talk about things like equality, party phases, all of it. We've even got some cool stuff from Rich Cooper here about guys that are saying, am I the for just being a man? So we'll get to that. All right, everyone, before we start, I want you to hit that subscribe button. I want you to hit that like button and put your notes in the comments. It helps us with the algorithm. It helps us to grow, which you're doing an amazing job of, but let's get on it.
How many guys you knocking down on spring break? Because it seems like you're just going wild.
It's going pretty
How
crazy.
many guys you knocked down?
We lost count after like 12.
12 guys on spring break.
Yeah.
How many more guys you knocking down?
On a regular weekend, I'd probably say 3.
3 guys a weekend?
Okay, so they look like babies to me. And it's what's really astounding is that, like, I feel like the age is getting younger and younger. Even the OF girls, we just showed a girl who's 22 and she's got like a baby face. She looks like a child, right? So these look like children to me. Granted, I'm a little older, but still, it's jarring to hear young women that look like children have baby faces talking about how they're knocking back 3 guys in a weekend. Spring break, sleeping with 12 guys. That's 1 week, 12 guys. So the perception by these women is that when you're young, this is, first of all, the new thing to do. And they're all saying, well, guys aren't going to not go out with me because they're not going to have any other choice because we're all doing this. And the perception is that when they get to be 25, 30, if they stop that behavior, that this doesn't matter anymore. Like, guys aren't going to go back and care about this. So what do you make of that? Do guys still care about this stuff? Is there room to care about this stuff if so many women are behaving like this? And like, what is the future of these women that are talking like this right now?
Yeah, men care about it, and they increasingly care about it more and more and more. The big problem with, out of the thousands of conversations I've had with women like this, I understand what the issue is. It's an issue of fairness in their brain. They think that men are out there being promiscuous and screwing everything that they can, right? They're trying to get in the pants of every woman that they see. That is literally what these women think. And so they think, well, if men can be promiscuous, there's nothing wrong with me being promiscuous. It's only fair. The problem is that the fairness mindset doesn't actually work, right? Relationships aren't fair. Intersexual dynamics aren't fair. Men are stronger than you, for instance. That's not fair. All right? They're more logically and stoic minded. That's not fair. There's all sorts of unfair advantages that men have in life, and there's also unfair advantages that women have in life in comparison to men. They don't have to get drafted, go fight wars. They don't have to do all sorts of things that fall on the backs of men. But the reason that women have no problem whatsoever being promiscuous and talking about it on camera and being happy and giddy about it and talk, I've heard some of the worst, most disgusting interviews ever. There was a chick who was recently talking on Twitter about how her and her husband have conversations about all the men who have been inside her. Right? These women are horrific, but from their perspective, it's only fair. The future for women like this is the same as the current status that we see for women like this who were very promiscuous back in high school, things like that. It doesn't work out well. It never works out well. And now your online reputation follows you forever. It's not like when we were younger. You can't just move to a new town and reinvent yourself. It doesn't work that way anymore.
What do you think it is about these women that is most unattractive to men? Is it is it the lack of self-respect? Is it the damage that they incur then by virtue of all this behavior, and then they're bitter and difficult to be around and blaming you for past things? Or what is it exactly, if you could hit the nail on the head, that turns guys off with the high body count girls?
Yeah, it comes down to biological reproduction. Why are men attracted to youthful looking women who have shapely hips, a good buttocks, a nice ample bosom, right? All of those things are attracted to those things because it signals reproduction in our brain. And so what signals reproduction is what we want to have sex with, right? That's the whole point. You're signaling in our brain, reproduce, reproduce, reproduce. And sex ultimately is for reproduction, right? That is what its actual function is. So you're attracted to these various traits in women for the purposes of reproduction. Now, we're way past reproduction. We have condoms and birth control and abortion and everything else. But in our brains, attraction, wanting to have sex, that is in line with wanting to reproduce. That's the whole point of it, right? That's why it's ingrained in men to be attracted to women, is so that we will reproduce with them. Major problem here, the reason it's so revolting, is how would you as a man be able to, let's say 200 years ago or 100 years ago, figure out paternity? How would you do that? How would you know if the child was yours? What would be the big signal for that? Well, the big signal for that would be chastity, virginity, things like this. Those are the only way you could assure your own paternity and not become a cuckold.
But with so many women doing this now, and the age of the women doing this, it's getting like lower and lower and lower. Is there going to be options for guys to not embrace women who are behaving like this? What is the option? Are there enough women not doing it?
Yeah. So the thing is that as far as a mating strategy goes, trends for women, they shift around, right? You see this big kind of return online now to the trad life sphere, right? It's all about the trad life. But now they're mixing in as much sexuality with the trad life stuff as they possibly can too. But what I've noticed is that women who more embrace that sphere, they actually get a lot of male attention from a lot of the same types of men that the kind of skanks actually want. So is there a future in the next 10 years where there's kind of a return to that, to a more chaste kind of lifestyle for women? I mean, I doubt it, but it's possible. It's possible. I'm not totally black-pilled. I don't think there's no future here for men. And men also, they move over to other countries. They get wives that way. They do all sorts of various strategies to find themselves women who have a low body count. Now, and some men don't care. That's true. Some of them don't. But for the ones who do, those women do exist. They are out there. There's not going to be enough supply to meet the demand, though.
I have a question for you, off-shooting, just a little bit off topic, that occurs to me a lot. When you look at traditional men with traditional values who want a traditional woman, right? They claim they want a traditional woman. What I'm seeing happen a lot, which is kind of disturbing to me, is traditional guys who say, yeah, I'm a masculine guy. I want a feminine woman. I want a traditional woman, all this stuff. And then they get married to a woman and they have their wife, and then they have the nanny, and then they have the chef, and then they have the au pair and the person who comes to clean the house. And they really don't have a traditional wife at all. They have a trophy wife and then a bunch of hired help. And there's something wrong with that. There's also something wrong with, to me, a woman who wants to be married but doesn't want to be a wife, a woman who wants children but doesn't want to be a mom. So my question is, because I talk to a lot of these guys, they've got money. So yeah, does that open doors? Sure. But you can't tell me that you want a traditional woman if that woman is really not doing any of the traditional tasks at all and is kind of removed from the children. There's a nanny in between. There's a housekeeper doing, what is she doing all day long other than look pretty, and maybe she's got the long nails and the hair extensions and looks like a Barbie doll. Great. But that's not a traditional woman. So what is going on here? What do they really want? And is there a schism here in terms of men?
Well, I think we gotta break a couple of things down here. First, the nanny housekeeper thing, that's unavailable to the vast majority of couples and men. It's completely unavailable to most people. So that requires a level of income that most couples don't have, at least not starting out. Maybe later in life, 15, 20 years, but the overwhelming majority of people can't afford to have in-person housekeeping and chefs and things like that. That's not a thing that's very common in most American households. But when you're talking about traditional, what do you mean by that? What does that mean when you say a traditional woman? What is a traditional woman?
To me, you're asking me? To me, a traditional woman is someone who prioritizes being a wife, a mom, takes care of her own kids, doesn't put them in daycare, doesn't work has a child and all of that changes, cooks food, enjoys taking care of the home, cleans her own house, so
Why can't a woman who's screwed 200 guys do that for a guy though? They can, right?
Well, they can, sure, they can.
So that doesn't seem to be kind of getting at what it is.
Well, that's not the body count conversation though. This is a separate conversation, regardless of body count.
Yeah, but I wouldn't consider right. But when I think of traditional woman, traditional man, I'm thinking of masculinity and femininity, which I attribute to virtues. So I consider there to be feminine and masculine virtues. Now, all virtues are shared, but the way that you know it's a masculine virtue, you know it's a feminine virtue, is that if one sex drops that virtue, society is doomed. An example of this, if women lost courage for 24 hours, it would suck. There would be a lot of bad things. But if men lost courage for 24 hours, society would come to a screeching halt. If it was the case that all men became promiscuous tomorrow, that would be bad. But it would be way worse if all women became promiscuous tomorrow. And so you can tie the virtues in. That's how you know what is a feminine virtue and what is a masculine virtue. When I think traditional, I think virtue, a virtuous woman, or a masculine man. These would be virtues for men, right? So it'd be virtue on both sides. When you say traditional, you just mean does the laundry, right? Does the laundry, cooks food, things like that. I think ultimately that misses the point. I think what men are trying to get is virtuous women. I don't care, for instance, that I have a submissive woman who does my laundry and rubs my feet if she sucked 200 in her life, right? I don't want that chick, okay? I don't want her. So why? Because she's lacking the element that I care the most about, which is virtue. So I think people have to be kind of careful on the topic when you're talking about traditional men or traditional women, because oftentimes it's also the case that some of these men, they might be looking for, quote, a traditional woman who does these things, but have no virtue themselves. So virtue is something which has to be tied into the conversation when you're talking about traditionalism, because that's what makes it traditional, virtue.
I find that it often goes hand in hand, though. When I see a lot of the women who don't, and I'm not talking about, you have enough money so you can have help. I'm talking about a distaste for these things. There are women that I encounter that have a distaste for taking care of the home, a distaste for cooking a good meal. It's viewed as they've been programmed to believe it's a form of slavery. And I find that your virtue conversation goes in line with that, because oftentimes those are the women with a past. It just aligns a lot of time. It just does. Right. Whereas these women who are virtuous, and I know you're talking about morals, you're talking about things, decisions they've made, how many men they've been with, when they lost their virginity, all these things, right? I find that those women often will be the very ones who also do naturally feel inclined to take care of a home, do naturally want to be a supportive wife, do naturally prioritize their children. It just falls in line. So I think it has to be, I do think it's relevant, though, to have a conversation about both, because I also don't think it's virtuous as a woman to, have children and then not be the primary, not take care of them, to be absent. Hey, go into daycare so I can go work, X amount of hours. I don't think that's virtuous. I don't think it's. But we have to
get, again, some delineations here. Are you going to send your kids to public school? No. Okay, but if a woman sends her kids to public school, is she a failure? Is she doing something wrong there?
I mean, I'm a proponent of homeschooling, and
me too.
I'm not.
Is it actually? Are they lacking virtue at that point because they utilize the public school system? The way essentially a society is set up in a 2-income household is that schools are your built-in babysitting.
Yeah, I don't think that's virtuous, though. I don't think that when you have a child as a woman, you should be in a 2-income household. Somebody has to raise these children, and either it's going to be you, or it's going to be the state, or it's going to be it just can't. You can't. I get people find themselves in financial predicaments, but that's why I think this whole balance is messed up, where guys are supposed to be earning the money. I do think that look what you create when you put these kids in these school systems.
But let's look at this from a bird's eye view. So I agree with you. I'm a big proponent of homeschooling. My wife's online handle is based homeschool mom, right? Big proponent of it. And I agree with you that the state uses indoctrination centers called public school systems in order to produce the feminists of tomorrow. But let's say you're 22 years old and you get married to, a 22-year-old woman. She's in her most fertile years. You can have the most amount of children possible, or you can defer until you're a little bit more financially stable in your 30s, where she can have very few. If you're bringing in an income at 22 of, let's say, $40,000-$50,000 a year, that's really tough at that point, isn't it? To have kids and have a stay-at-home wife. So if the wife is out of the home working, is that a signal against virtue, or is that the necessity of society and she's inside of the supportive role?
I would still say do everything you can, whether that means you move to a place that's not super expensive, whether that means that, I mean, this is a bigger conversation too, I think, about the breakdown of community and extended family and how people used to live, because grandma and grandpa used to be involved, and there used to be a community of people that were family, that were nourishing and helping, and it was just a different life. It was a much healthier life for everyone. But I would say I get this question a lot from people, and then I look at where they come from, and they're in like New York City. And I say, well, yes, in New York City, you can't survive on that. But I live in a small town in Texas right now, and I will tell you that there are plenty of moms. The dad is a firefighter, and the mom stays at home, and that's a decision that they are making, and the mom homeschools, and it's really doable. They live in nice homes, and they do what they need to do to make that a priority. So I think that needs to be
I think it's
first.
possible for some. What I would always recommend in these cases is I don't think that it's a smack on your virtue that your kids may go to public school for a short period of time. What I would say is that there's a lot of people who plan for an escape. They think of it like a prison. Yep. And I think that that's the right way to think of it. I think that they're in these major metropolitan areas, and they get together with their wife, and they sit down, they come up with a plan of action for escaping, right? Escaping the human zoo. And so they go, okay, for the next 5 years, you're going to work and I'm going to work, and we're going to put every penny away till we get out of these major cities or get somewhere where you can then stay at home with the kids. I'm not willing to kind of knock that or say that that's virtueless, or say that because it is the case that you're utilizing all the resources which are available for you to kind of plan your escape from this diabolical system, that you're doing something wrong. In fact, I'd say you're doing something right at that point. I did that. Right, I did the exact same thing. I sat down and plotted and planned meticulously my escape from the kind of horrible internal city lives which people find themselves inside of these rat
I agree
races.
with you 110%. I don't think there's a lack of virtue in that path. However, I do think there's a lack of virtue in a path that is perfectly comfortable with that whole world, with, it's more important for me essentially to be working, and it's no big deal to drop my kid off at daycare at 6 months old for, 8 hours a day, and then go into a school system that, whatever they learn at school, they'll survive, they'll be fine. Yeah,
but aren't those women a self-correcting problem in many ways? Like the type
what
of
happens
woman
to their kids,
who...
though? That's the thing.
That's true. Well, it's true. But here's the thing. If we look at the stats and we see the reproduction rates of the heavily religious, for instance, against the kind of secular bimbos that you're talking about, they have one kid. Sometimes two, but usually they have one. And if you look at the birth rate in the United States, it's in a big fat nosedive. A lot of them don't have any. The future really doesn't belong to women like this anyway. And it's true, they don't prioritize their children the right way. They end up with kind of monstrous kids. Some of them make it out okay. Not many, but some of them do. But I do think that the future doesn't really belong to those people anyway. That ultimately, these people think themselves right out of existence. Imagine deferring your family as a woman until you're in your 30s, right? That's not the time to be having kids. Your body doesn't.
I know. I did.
Yeah, your body doesn't exactly bounce right back, does it? Not like at 22, 23 years old, women will go in and have a child and be back at work the next day. They just bounce right back. That doesn't happen in your 30s, and you can only have so many.
That's
right.
Correct.
And the stressors that it puts on you, the links between the autistic and the late deferment of child care or child having is huge. It's probably the number one correlated link with autism is that we have an aging female population having children. It's a terrible idea. 90% of the time, it's a terrible idea. You should start in your 20s. Then, by the way, that's when all of human civilization always started.
Early
was in their
20s, I'd argue, too.
Yeah. Yeah, or late teens, 17, 18, 19. That was very common, even 16 in some cultures. Now, I'm not recommending that. I'm just saying that if you look at human reproduction pathways, your 20s are where it's at. And that's when you should be starting. But there's unique challenges now that other people didn't have 100 years ago. We don't have cross-generational wealth anymore.
Yep.
There's no centennial farms that people are growing up on. You're basically in a human zoo. So when people ask and they say, hey, wait a second, look, I'd love to get married to my high school sweetheart, but man, it takes 10 years to establish a career, even in a trade where I can really start making the kind of money that's necessary to take care of my family. Look, I agree. I know. I was a tradesman my whole life. But what I can say is this. Get married anyway. Start having the plot the escape.
Right.
Plot
Be smart about it.
Plot the escape. Plot getting the out of there and getting somewhere, like you're saying, a place where there's a better cost of living. There's going to be some sacrifice. Now, maybe you're not going to get the great California weather. I didn't. Okay, I get the Michigan winter, which lasts 9 months. But the cost of living is significantly decreased, and I was able to, on one income, a tradesman income, take care of an entire household. Now, I had to cut out all the vacations. I had to cut all that stuff out, but we were able to do it. Now, does that mean my wife never worked? Of course not. There's times where we got behind, financially behind, or the car died, something like this. Hey, it's time for some part-time work. Women have always worked in some capacity to support their husbands in their primary role. So I think we got to be really careful when we talk about traditional, what we mean by that. What I mean by that is that you're marrying a woman of great virtue and that she's marrying a man of great virtue. That's what we're looking for here, not the idea of like, oh, she cleans the socks by hand and bakes your cookies, right? Because ultimately, those are kind of tangential side notes.
Excellent point. I want to talk, Fresh and Fit has a short out that addresses the issue of equality. So let's play number 2, and then we'll talk about male and female equality and why that twists people.
When you say women deserve less, it's like immediate like,
I think in a majority of situations, women do, though, deserve less, right? Because they have this egalitarian mindset where they think that they're equal to a man, but at the same time, they want a guy that's superior to them. Women want taller, money, competent, but then they expect you to treat them equal. They think, I just need to be pretty and exist. It's a more of a, what can you do for me type mindset, and you're here to get me. I don't need to necessarily do anything for you. So I wish more women had that critical thinking like, okay, he's really good at this. Let me kind of come in and fill in other roles. But a lot of women don't do that, unfortunately.
Okay. So this idea of equality, I want to just dig into. First of all, do women want men who they feel are superior to them?
Yes.
Okay. In what ways?
Well, they want them to make more money, obviously. They want them to be stronger than them, obviously. But more importantly, they want them to have something that most women never get, which is the respect of other men. So one of the big things that you'll see online, this phenomenon really comes out online, is the idea of the pick-me. You've heard that term, pick-me. I'm sure you get called pick-me.
All the time.
Right?
All the time.
And many women do. Really, I think what the feminist says is the pick-me is a woman who's starved for male attention, so just tells men what they want to hear, thus betraying the sisterhood. But that's all cope. What's actually going on is that the women who are most often considered pick-me's or called pick-me's by these skanks are actually women who just have some kind of actual respect for men. So they're not just fuck objects for men. Instead, there's some sort of mutual respect there, or there's an opinion there which is valued. Remember that most women, their opinion is never valued by anybody, including other women. It's just not valued at all. There's a lot of emotional garbage that comes out of their mouth with each other, validating each other, things like this. But most people don't seek out the opinions of women. And so if it is the case that you have a woman who there's actual men who seek their opinions out or respect their opinions, this is infuriating to the sisterhood. They lose their minds collectively about this, because how do they get attention? They don't do it through, they want to be valued for all the things that they're not valued for. I want to be valued for my mind. I want to be valued for my brains. I want to be valued for the incredible things I say. Nope, they're only valued because they got big tits and guys like to look at them. That's it. And they know it. And because of that, it's an infuriating thing for them to see any sort of validation that comes to a woman from men that is something other than looks, because that's all they've ever been validated for. So this is kind of a big issue when you get into this idea of the pick-me parade. Now, when you're talking about what do women want when it comes to men, they want men who have high social status. Why? Because they don't. They don't have high social status. Women don't have social status with men the same way that men have social status in society. I don't give a shit about your career. I don't care if you make millions of dollars. I don't give a shit about any of that. It's completely irrelevant to me when it comes to mate selection, and 90% of men, they don't give a shit about that. Your achievements are meaningless to them in that respect. Now, are you a great mother? Right? Are you gonna give me back rub when I come home? If I get super irritated for no particularly good reason, right? Are you going to come over and do that head scratchy thing with the long nails, right? Are you going to do those things? Those are the things that we're looking for. Nobody gives a shit about your career. But what's happened is women have tried now to compete with men in the career field. They want to compete with them. And it's like, well, if we're in competition, I don't want to be in competition with my wife. That sounds awful, right? I don't want to do that. That sounds terrible. So when you're talking about validation, I mean, Myron's always been correct about this, that the standards that women have for men way higher than the standards that men have for women, because men actually don't care. And by the way, we're the romantic sex, not women.
Explain that.
Men are the romantic sex. Well, aren't the men the ones who show up with the boxes of chocolates and flowers? Aren't the men the one who plan the dates? Aren't men the ones who come up with the great love songs?
Well, women will say...
Aren't men the ones who do the poems?
Women will say that they've trained you to do that, and that's not instinctual, and that it's forced, and that, you know, women kind of have to orchestrate or supervise or, you know, write down reminders to get you guys to do that stuff.
Yeah, too bad history disagrees with them. Look up courtly love. Courtly love, true, was popularized by a female queen. That's true. But this was a thing which was produced by male poets of the time. A courtly love was a completely, and chivalry itself came out of the mind of men. They've always been the romantic type. Winning over the woman as the trope. That's all courtly love stuff, right? All comes out of that era. And no, we are the romantic sex, always have been the romantic sex. So the question is what are women bringing to the table, or are women the table? That's the question.
Let me ask you about this equality, though, because I mean, women don't want the responsibilities that men have, you know, in the same way. They don't want to have to earn X amount of dollars a year. They don't want to have to build the roads and bridges. They don't want to have to, they don't want the responsibilities of all those things. So when they shout equality, what do they want? What is that thing?
Status.
Is it just status?
They're asking for status.
What does that translate to?
They're asking
status manifests how?
So inside of a woman's brain, right, at least the women, the many thousands I've talked to, they think that sitting in a cubicle and crunching numbers or doing some other HR bullshit work or psychologizing on a couch is just as valuable to society as building a bridge. They think it's just as valuable to society as welding. They think it's just as valuable to society as warfighting. They think it's just as valuable to society as the things that men are doing, and it's not. It's not. And you can actually see this bear out. What have women been about for 50 years? The pay gap. Well, why does a pay gap exist? Well, because men are willing to work more overtime. They're willing to do all. If you compensate for it, there's actually parity. Inside of pay between men and women, right? The main thing here is when you're talking about equality, what they really want is they want to have the same social status absent the responsibility. That's it. That's what they mean by equality. It's not equal at all.
So it's the authority without responsibility argument, essentially.
Yeah. It's always. Well, and that's what they want status for. Status is always for authority, right? Women wanting authority. That's what abortion is about. Abortion is often about revenge against a man. I can kill your kid. I want the option to kill your kid if I want to kill your kid.
You said something before about women knowing, you know, guys will be drawn to a woman, say she's got, the big boobs, and they're like, they don't care about your career. They don't care about any of that. It seems to me that women really do intrinsically know that, though. They do know it, because what do they lead with, right? They lead with their sexuality. They lead with, they lead with that. They weaponize it, actually, oftentimes, because they know that their power rests in their attractiveness, their looks, their sexuality, all of those things. They don't lead with their career.
Where they put their boobs, right in your face,
they're not leading.
Stop looking, stop sexualizing me. Then they put their boobs right in your face. Stop it, stop looking.
They're not leading with their career. They're not. That's not. And if they do talk about their career on the date, they do it while the boobs are hanging out, right? So they know you've just heard like you don't give a shit. They know you don't give a shit, but there's this odd disconnect somewhere because they keep reaching for those very things that they know men don't care about, while instinctively then kind of leaning on the things they do know men care about. So they go out on the date and they talk about their job half naked, right? It's like this very strange disconnect that happens in a lot of these women.
It's not really that much of a disconnect. Imagine this. So everything in your schooling, from the time you're in first grade to the time you're through college, you're being trained by women, right? Women are the ones who are dominant in teaching roles, and they're the ones who are dominant in nursing roles, things like this. From the teaching role up, what do they hear about? They hear about women's empowerment. They hear about how men and women are interchangeable widgets, how women have fought for their freedom, right, as though they were using muskets or something to do this. That's what they hear about, and so they do think that there is a social status dynamic which they also adhere to inside of a hierarchy. They think that they're essentially inside of a man's hierarchy, and they're competing within that hierarchy. They're just not. It's just a bunch of bullshit lies that they've been fed. There is no competition with women inside of the male hierarchy, not when it comes to work or career. Men don't give a shit about it. They don't care.
It's people ask me like why I do this, why I do what I do, and I think part of it was having a son, right, and realizing, wow, the world is effed up. I need to say my piece, but also there was a lot of reflection. I felt so lied to. I grew up, and in my ear the whole time was, you need to go to college. You need to get, you need to prioritize this from everyone in my ear. It was, I went to college and I graduated valedictorian. Who gives a shit, really? I look back and I'm like, what a waste of my time. I was not intrinsically ambitious. I did not want to work. I wanted to look pretty. I was a very objectively attractive young woman, and I wanted to lay in the sun and look pretty and just be feminine. And it was like, you got to do this. You got to pay your own bills. And it was so disruptive to my nervous system and my psyche. But looking back, I'm like, man, I got very lucky, Andrew. I have an amazing husband. I have an incredible child. I got pregnant late very easily. This God had a path for me, and I thank him for it every single day. But I still look back and I'm like, what the hell was I doing? I was not promiscuous. I was just wasting time with stuff that I didn't give a lick about, that didn't help me to feel healthier, stronger. So people always ask me why I do this. And I'm like, I'm really angry, at all the people who wanted me to follow this male path so badly. And it happens to so many women who aren't naturally that way. They don't feel that. I didn't feel this ambition or this desire to be a man or follow a male path. I didn't want to do any of it. I didn't want to do an internship. I didn't want to work that hard. I didn't want any of it. And still, I spent a decade on bullshit, essentially. So I'm like yelling at these women through the camera, like, listen to yourself, and it's wild how.
Well, you're getting to the root of something here, which is most of the intersexual dynamics that we talk about they're kind of tangential. They actually don't get to the root of what our issue is. The root of the issue revolves around one thing and one thing only. It's the same thing it's always revolved around: numbers and reproduction. And it works this way. It's real simple. Men have a duty to protect society and gather, protect, and refine resources and distribute them. In the distribution of those resources to society, women and children are the primary benefactors, not men. That's the case. That's the higher duty, the virtuous duty of men. Women's duty is supposed to be to reproduce. What's happened is since feminism and its rise, especially in the late 1800s to right now, women have been sold a bill of goods. Their duty is not to reproduce, that their duty is to do everything except reproduce. You can do that later. You can defer that. You
or
can
not
have
at
your
all.
fun. You can blah, blah, blah. But because men are still fulfilling that order of the social contract, let's say, and women are not fulfilling their end, that's why you see this disconnect.
And
happening.
they're hurting. I'm telling you, I have so many friends that did what I did and didn't get so lucky, and they're devastated. They look back at their life and they're like, what do I have to hold on to? This career? Who gives it? Who cares?
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's no children.
Yeah, who cares?
There's no family. There's nothing to essentially keep them warm at night. They feel like they've lost purpose. They've lost years. It's part of this content is, I don't want women to wind up like that. I don't want that.
Well, you're talking about fulfillment.
Exactly.
So in Christianity, in Orthodoxy, we call this teleology, or the telos, purpose. And you're talking about the purpose of men and women. What is our ultimate purpose here? And the truth is you can just take it right to its rudimentary building blocks. What does it take to build a society? Well, the man and the woman have to have the sexy time for there to be the next generation, right? That's how it has to work. You have to actually reproduce, right? Now, how do you end up with healthy families and healthy cross-generational families and these kind of big dynamics where you had, in some cases, whole towns which were founded with last name Jones, it's like Jonestown, things like this, Jamestown, Smithtown. It's because these families were so dynamic and cross-generational and so large that they began to accrue a lot of wealth to themselves. But the only way that happens is if you have what they call the traditional gender roles. There's not gender roles, right? This is how humanity actually has to operate within its building blocks, or it can't function. South Korea is not going to exist in 50 years. I mean, it's not actually going to exist. Their birth rate is under 1. It's at 0.9. Last I checked, it's almost. I think the revised number is going to be 0.7. That's a people whose demise is assured. It's assured not through war, not through attrition, not through disease, not through financially being crippled. They have every advantage in the world. They're going to be completely devastated because they flipped on gender roles, the idea of gender roles. The truth of the matter is that you have to have building blocks for your society in general, period. And we've reversed them. So we're screwed, right? That's it. It's really that simple. Women defer family, and they defer having children until later in life. That's it. It killed society. It's killing society, literally killing it. And what's happened instead is we say, well, you should do what makes you feel good. Do what makes you feel good, man. If it makes you feel good to go 50 dudes in a weekend, you go, girl. If it makes you feel good, dude, to do a bunch of drugs and trip out on mushrooms on top of a mountain somewhere, bro, you can do that. Life's not about what makes you feel good. And ultimately, you miss your purpose. And this is what's happened, is that the purpose of men and women has been completely inverted.
I 100% agree. I want to get to, Ben, we're going to skip 3 if you're listening. Hopefully you are. We're going to go to 4. So this is from Just Posting L's on Twitter, and it's titled, She Should Be Loving Life. And this is a post. He says, am I the for telling my wife she's not a single parent just because I work long hours? My wife, 29, and I, 31, have a 3-year-old son. I work 10 to 12-hour days as a contractor while she stays home. Lately, she's been venting online and to friends, saying she feels like a single mom because I'm never around. I get that she's overwhelmed. I am too, but I'm working my ass off to keep us afloat. The other night, I heard her refer to herself as a solo parent during a Zoom call with her mom. After she hung up, I told her I didn't appreciate that. I'm not partying. I'm not neglecting our family. I'm working. She said I'm being defensive and that she feels like a single mom because she handles everything alone at home. Now I feel guilty. I don't want to invalidate her, but I also feel like she's ignoring everything I do. Am I the for calling her out? So what I find, and I'm going to have you respond to this guy, but what I find most disturbing about these posts when they crop up is that the guys are unsure. Like, this guy has lost his way so much that he is unsure that he's doing the right thing. This is a guy working long hours, doing nothing wrong, objectively, just based on what he's saying here. Obviously, we don't know if there's an extended story, but he feels the need to say, wait a minute, am I doing something wrong? Do I also need to be doing X, Y, and Z? Am I failing my woman in some way? What do you say to men like this?
That you've fallen for the great feminist trick of fairness, right? That what she's talking about is not fair. It isn't fair. You're working, you get to get out of the house, and I have to stay here with the kids. Not fair. Tell her to shut her mouth. Literally tell her those words. This is the biggest thing in society that irritates me. It's perfectly acceptable to tell women to shut the up. Not only is it perfectly acceptable, but more men should do it, especially husbands. They should look at their obnoxious wives when they're being obnoxious and tell them, just like you would a man, you're being obnoxious, shut your mouth, and don't disrespect me in public. Ever. Never. It's not for you to do. Now, inside, what happens when men hear this, and what happens especially when women hear this, it's abusive. It's abusive. Oh, guys, abusive. It's emotional abuse. The truth of the matter is that they have no problem talking ill about you to their friends, to their family, which is exactly what this chick did. No problem doing the backbiting. Somehow there's a problem, though, if you tell them to shut their mouth and get in line. And the thing is like, it's perfectly acceptable for you to do that. And you should do that. You should be like, look, you need to shut your mouth and do your job. The same thing your boss would tell you at work. Shut your mouth and do your job. You know what happens when you complain as a tradesman? You say, I have too much on my plate. Your boss says, well, get a bigger plate. They don't care. They don't care because it's the results that matter. And it's the same thing here. Ultimately, they live in the most comfortable, air-conditioned, awesome world ever. There's never been a better time to be alive for a woman, right? Tell them to shut the up. Shut up. And you know what? You know what's funny? 90% of the time, they actually respond pretty well to that.
Well, yeah, because
they actually respond pretty well to the decisiveness of you saying, shut your mouth, do your job.
Well, because it's also a guy who has self-respect, who doesn't give a lick if she gets, but you're doing, who doesn't care about the rant, and who isn't afraid to be a man, right? So there's a part of women that really do want to be led and do want the man of the house to act like the man of the house. And we will test you. We will test you and see. This is just natural what we do. We test you, we push the envelope, and then there's either going to be the guy that caves, that then gets completely emasculated, we lose respect for, we lose attraction for, the whole power dynamic falls apart, or the guy that says, I'm not taking your shit, right? Point blank. And interesting, she doesn't find it abusive that she's back talking.
Well, let's reverse it. Let's say for a second that you were living with your brother or a friend, and he was living there rent-free, right? And you provided for his entire life, and all he had to do was watch your kid during the day while you worked. If he started complaining about that, what would you say to him? You would say, get the. You'd say, get the out if you don't like it, right? You wouldn't just say shut up. You'd say shut the up and get the out. So the thing is why are you taking that shit from her? Because she's a woman. Oh, well, Andrew, women have to be dealt with in a very particular... Well, all of that is a way... That's a way that women hide from accountability and responsibility.
That gets back to the debate
They literally tell you...
we talked about in the beginning.
Yeah, they literally tell you, wait a second, Andrew. Wait a second, that's not fair. You have to deal... So what women are actually doing is saying, I'm inferior to you, a man. Right, when a woman says that I'm inferior to you and I need to be spoken to in a certain way where you acknowledge that I'm inferior to you, present it to her like that. And you know what she'll say? No, I'm not inferior to you. And you can say, great, then shut the up.
That takes us back to the original conversation that I had with you when I asked about that debate strategy and handling women and men differently. Because when you saw Hillary Clinton on that debate stage, that's exactly what she did. She weaponized that. She was like, every time she was checked, fact checked, it was, I'm being, brutalized. You're a misogynist. This is sexism, all of that stuff, essentially. And the bottom line is you got to just
be a misogynist and be sexist.
You can't cater to that crap is the bottom line.
Well, actually, it's even worse because the claims of misogyny, it's Schrodinger's feminist played out, right? I'm the most badass, empowered woman ever. or I'm the biggest victim who's ever existed. Whichever one gives me the most
At the
benefit
moment.
at the time.
Subject to
At
change
the moment.
at any moment
So,
as well.
so the thing is when they say, I'm a victim here. I'm a victim. Oh, but at the same time, I'm super empowered.
Which one is it?
You got to pick a
one.
lane. You got to pick a lane.
I want to get to this one by Rich Cooper. We have 2 more. Let's go to number 5. We're going to play the video. The text above it says, men, women like this that don't have genuine burning desire for you will just use you to mock for TikTok clout. Don't waste your time. But let's check out the video.
So me and the guy went on 6 dates, and after 6th date, he told me that if we're not going home together, we won't be seeing each other anymore. I told him, okay, well, wait in the car. I'm going to go up and clean up. I'll call you when I'm ready. Literally, I went home, showered, and went to bed. Like, what the hell is this ultimatum about? Who is going to go for that?
Andrew.
Well, I mean, I would need some more, kind of like back details on the. I don't think there's anything wrong with a woman wanting to keep her chastity intact, if it is the case that she's one of these kind of chaste women. I think that's fine.
Do you suspect that she would be one of those chaste women? I'm just,
I suspect that she is not.
Okay, so let's assume.
So,
I hear your point, because I'm also all for women, saving, their sanctity, shall we speak. Let's assume that's not the case, because 99.999% of the time it's not. What is really going on here? Because to me, this is a pattern as well of women who, I always tell guys, she needs to be attracted to you from second one. She needs to want you to jump her bones from second one. That's like the basis of the power dynamic as being established, as I see it. But this is very common, that guys will repeatedly go on dates with women who clearly aren't attracted to them, and then this is how it goes down. How do guys not get into this predicament? How do guys feel this out to know, like, hey, this is a woman that doesn't really give a shit about me. She's not attracted to me. This isn't going anywhere. This is a waste of my time, my money, my energy, my effort. What are the signs here? Can you advise at all?
Well, the thing is I've been out of the dating market for years and years and years, and I don't think I would do very well inside of it. And the reason I don't think I would do very well is because I just don't think I would do it. I think that if my wife died tomorrow, let's say, that I would just be happily alone, basically, for the rest of my life. But that's me, right? I'm kind of introverted this way, but I'm not really a dating advice guy. That's not. It's not a thing I really dive into. What I can say is this: if it is the case that this woman, let's just give her the benefit of the doubt, was engaging in this because she wanted to stay chaste and she wasn't interested in just going back home and screwing some guy, I think that that's fine. But chances are actually pretty good that she's probably ridden the carousel, like you say, and this guy basically is saying, look, I want to see where if basically I'm gonna put in an ultimatum. Either we're finally going to seal the deal here, or you're just continuously wasting my time. Now, if you ask this important question, how could you kind of shit test a woman to find out if she's interested in you? That seems like it would be a perfectly acceptable shit test to see if she's interested in you, right? If she really was, I don't think that she's going to turn you down by the 6th day.
Yeah, and it's very obvious, too, when women are interested in men. If you have to ask or if you have to wonder, she's not. Because they're very willing, shall we say, especially in this day and age. The vast majority of them are very willing to get physical, to do the extra flirting. There's signs. There's just signs that are very obvious. So if you are on the fence, I always tell guys, if you're on the fence, like, is she into me? And it's date 6 and she hasn't given you so much as a peck, move on. Move on. All right, I want to close. Brian over at your friend over at whatever podcast put this post up. I think this may have been the one you were referencing earlier. It may not be. I want to play this video to close out. I found it vomit-inducing, honestly, but important to watch nonetheless. And this relates a little bit to the conversation we had about a woman's past. Let's close out with this last one, number 6.
My boyfriend has a very big issue with my past. He found my list of people I have been with, and he was pissed. He actually broke up with me initially, but after a while, we got back together. The issue now is, I feel like he is constantly making judgmental comments about me being easy or having a high body count. He always says he's just kidding, but how can I get him to stop caring that I was with guys before him? I feel like every single girl has a list of the guys she's ever been with. Like, how fun. I remember the men that have been inside of me, and I have a husband, and that's okay. This sounds like a really insecure or possessive man. We've all lived, we've all had a good time, and if anything, everyone we've been with prior to has helped us become the person we are today. I think your answer next time he says that, if you were just being catty, is like, what's your point? I was so easy. What's your point? Do you not want to be with me anymore? He's like, well, no, I'm just saying, like, I'm really shocked, like, how easy you were. What's your point? What's your point? Are you trying to put me down right now? Or do you want me to get upset? Do you want me to defend myself? Like, you let me know what's your point? What do you want me to do? You want me to leave? You want me to call them? Do you want me to detail everyone for you? Do you want me to pretend you're the first person I've ever had sex with? Like, what do you want? What will make you feel better? You little boy.
Okay. So she's lovely. I'm sure, every guy's just jumping to hop on that train. But, bottom line is this guy's not going to get over it. I think his point is that he probably, in this case, and obviously we don't have the backstory, that guy probably thought he was getting involved with somebody different, right? He was probably taken aback. The list seems to have been quite long, especially if you're using the word easy. He's not going to get over it. He's not going to be able to stop thinking about it, period, it sounds like. What's interesting to me, though, is this very typical argument that comes out, which is that this is the sign or the marking of an insecure man. Men who don't like this, who can't get over it, who can't honestly celebrate the fact that I've had all these men inside me before them, are insecure. Can you just take that on to close?
Interesting. Actually, it was the argument, the set piece argument came before that. So the set piece argument that she had was this. She said, all that made me the woman I am today. That's actually what her argument is. All of those experiences, now she didn't say it like that. She said it with rose-colored glasses, right? All those various experiences with those men made me the woman that I am today. And that's the woman you love, right? Basically, what she's saying is, absent all that, you wouldn't have even liked me, right? I needed to have all of that, or else I couldn't possibly be this woman who you desire in front of you here today. That's actually the cornerstone of her argument. She moves on to say, okay, this is an insecurity because you have boundaries. And oftentimes, this is the case with almost every human being on planet Earth. If they're upset by your boundaries, they'll push that you're insecure in some way because you have them. And women are notorious for doing this because they like to push your boundaries, right? And one way to push your boundaries is by saying that you're insecure. Oh, you're just insecure. If you were a more secure person, A, B, C, D wouldn't bother you, right? This is a way to, again, defer accountability and responsibility. Though they're not the only ones who do it. Men do it too. Women are just more notorious for it. But what this reminds me of is an old meme. That's good enough to come in, Anon, but you don't want to take it home to mommy. And the thing is that a lot of these women, that's actually what it's become. It's become look, it's fine for you to go and use their body, right? But you don't want to settle down with any of them. And the thing is with her, she's basically actually making the claim that that's good. She's actually telling you that it's good for you guys to do that. She's saying, go find women like her, dump your load on them and move on, because that's what makes them the women they are today for their man. That's the actual logical argument from this femoid
Do you think
retard.
It's real, though?
Not
Do you
kidding.
think she actually, in her heart of hearts, believes that, or is that justification for bad behavior to excuse?
No, I believe 100% that in her brain, she 100% excuses any past behavior that she's ever had because that's what makes her the person she is today. And after all, you're in love with that person. Do you think you would have loved me absent
you would
the
have been
50
bored
dicks
by
I took?
me if I hadn't had all that.
Yeah, or not just bored, but you need my baggage. You need all of my insecurities that come with it. You need all of my comparisons which come with it, right? You need that because that's the package deal which is going to be helpful to you. And it's like, who believes this shit? Well, there's a lot of men who believe this shit, and there's even more women who believe this. And so that's what my capacity is. My entire job is to get in at the logic and destroy these feminists at their root by showing just how absurd the things are that they say. If I was in the room with this chick, I would just ask her, would your husband not love you if it were the case that you married him when you were a virgin? And I think, honestly, that she would say, no, I don't think he would. So then your husband wanted you certified and she would say, suddenly it clicks in their head, right? Like, oh, shit. Oh, shit, that sounds retarded when I say it out loud. Yes, it does, doesn't it? Sounds kind of retarded, doesn't it?
Oh, man. Well, on that note, Andrew, thank you so much for being here. What I like about you is that you just don't give a shit. You just say your piece.
Not at all.
You just don't care.
I'm too old. I'm too old. I don't give a shit. And I rather enjoy making my mark on society by destroying these feminist Looney Tunes. So I appreciate your time. You guys have a
Thank you.
wonderful
You want to
day.
plug anything for the audience?
Yeah. Make sure you head over to YouTube. You can subscribe to my channel there. I also have a huge hit show on Rumble. It's in the top 10 called The Extravaganza. You can go over there and check me out as well. And on my Twitter at PaleoChristCon. What you should do is send me all your money. You should do it immediately. The reason that you should do that is because I really like it when you do. Well, anyway, you guys have a wonderful...
Thank you so much. Great having you. We'll talk soon.